If you have been browsing for a wide-angle zoom lens lately and you're uncertain of what type of lens to get, then you are in the same boat as I was a few months ago. Now in the end I did decide to pick up the Zeiss 16-35, but I'm gonna be completely honest, this is probably the hardest choice I've done so far in terms of picking a new lens. And the reason for that is because, as you probably already know, there's so many good options out there. The Sigma 16-28 f2.8, the Tamron 17-28, you have the Sony 16-25, you have the Sony G Master 1 and 2, you have the 16-35 power zoom, and it can get really confusing. I'm gonna explain at the end of this video why I landed on this lens right here. But before we go ahead and do that, I am going to review this lens and break it down, and we're gonna see what it has to offer. But first things first, my name is Niclas, and if you decide to smash that like and subscribe button, that would be highly appreciated. And if you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. So starting off with the build quality of this lens, I'd say that the build quality here is close to perfect, this weather sealing is good, and the weight of this lens comes in at 533 grams. Now the filter thread size on this lens is 72 millimeters. The focus ring turns nice, smooth and precisely, and the same goes for the zoom ring, very nice and smooth here as well. But this lens does not have an aperture ring, nor does it have a focus hold button or a manual focus switch. Now this is an f4 lens, making it not very ideal for low light situations. However, it does go all the way from 16 to 35 millimeters, making it a very versatile lens, whether that is capturing a beautiful landscape or if you are doing street photography / cinematography. Now, as you zoom from 16 to 35 millimeters, the lens barrel extends by roughly 2 centimeters. And if you slam this lens on an aps-c camera, this lens provides a full frame equivalent range of 24 to 52 millimeters. This lens is also equipped with something called OSS, or Optical SteadyShot, which is an inbuilt stabilization feature that noticeably improves image stability. Now here's a comparison showing you the difference with OSS turned off versus turned on. The autofocus on this lens I found to be very accurate and quiet, and the focus breathing isn't bad at all on this lens, which makes this lens very ideal for video work. Now for the image quality, there are some things to address. Now if you're using this lens at the widest angle of 16 millimeters, you will get a pretty decent image in terms of sharpness all over the frame. The problem this lens has is that when you're using this lens at 35 millimeters, the corners tends to get a lot softer than what you're getting at 16 millimeters. And this goes basically all the way from f4 all the way up to f11. Now the minimum focus distance of this lens is 23 centimeters. If you're shooting at 16 millimeters for close-ups, it is sharp all the way from f4, but again here it's terrible at 35 millimeters. And it's really soft all the way up until like f11. For the flaring and contrast, it's not really that great either in bright light. Now for the bokeh, it's not really much to talk about since this is an f4 lens, but you can create a shallow depth of field if you get really close to the subject and you have a good amount of distance for your background. Alright, so why did I choose this lens over the rest? Well, one of the major things that made me go for this lens is the price tag. This is probably the cheapest lens out of all of them, especially if you put it next to the G Master Mark 1 and 2. And the same goes with the power zoom and the 16-25. Those are really expensive lenses. Now, I did buy this lens on the used market secondhand. It cost me like $300. That is probably the biggest reason I got this lens. Now, the second big reason is that I shoot mainly with the ZV-1 and the ZV-E10 Mark II. Now, the sad thing about the ZV-E10 Mark II is that that camera does not have IBIS. And that is something I like about this lens. It does have OSS as well. And also the fact that this lens is excellent for aps-c in terms of sharpness. And the third one being that it does have that 16 to 35 range compared to the Tamron and the Sigma and the 16 to 25 from Sony. Now also something that is worth mentioning is that I lean heavily into video as well. So me losing out on that sharpness at 35mm doesn't really bother me too much. Now also the f4 compared to the f2.8 kind of depends what camera you have here. But for me personally, I do have the ZV-1 as I said, and that camera is insane in low light. Now for the ZV-10 Mark II on the other hand, when I use that camera, I wish I could have opened up a little bit more because it's not nearly as good as the ZV-1 in low light. There you have it. That is the reason I chose this lens. If you're having a hard time choosing between this lens and the Tamron and the Sigma, and the range is the thing that draws you towards this, I think it's worth considering that you lose out a lot of sharpness when you are shooting at 35mm. So if your main thing is photography, maybe it's easier for you to choose the 17 to 28 or the Sigma 16 to 28 because it does lack a lot of sharpness on 35mm, and you also do not get to open up all the way to f2.8. Alright guys, that is going to be it. Hopefully you got some value from this video. Again, I would highly appreciate it if you could smash that like and subscribe button before you leave. Take care and have a good one.